Good morning, everybody. My name is Kristen Ancker, and I'm a Montessori educator, positive discipline trainer, and mom of 3 kids. I have a daughter who's 9, a daughter who's 6, and a son who's 3, almost 4. So welcome, and today we're going to be talking about building connection with our communication. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I was trained in Montessori in 2000, and I started off as a Montessori teacher and loved working with the children, but my passion was really working with the parents. So I then became the director of a preschool kindergarten program and later on an assistant head of school at a large Montessori school in Massachusetts. And it was there that I had so many good ideas for these parents and for these teachers, and I loved working with adults and with children. You know, as the assistant head, I had 3 and 4-year-old boys in my office at times, more to give the teacher a little break. And then I had a lot of 7th and 8th grade girls in my office with social media was just starting to come out. And we had some things to work through. So I thought working with parents, I had some good ideas. But then I became a mom. And I had Maggie, and she's been about 18 months to 2. She just very strong-willed, didn't want to do what I wanted her to do when I wanted her to do it. And she had her own way about it. So I was doing work consulting with schools, and I was at a Montessori school, and the woman said, "Well, have you ever heard of positive discipline?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I know positive discipline. I went to a conference that Jane Nelson spoke at one of the Montessori conferences, and so I got my books out, and I got my Positive Discipline for Preschoolers book out, and I read it, and it really resonated with me. So what I'm going to be talking with you today about is a lot of the positive discipline, the philosophy, and my background in Montessori, and then my latest research that I've been doing in nonviolent communication. And I'm very excited to be going out to California to Lynn Lott's training to become an encouragement consultant in July. So that's using that Adlerian psychology with adults. So I'm excited to do that. So we're going to dive right in. And I'm excited to see all the people that have joined. Hello. And we're going to start off with what we normally start off with in a positive discipline training. So let me know, what are the challenges that are happening right now? And when I ask about the challenges, we're going to focus on communication challenges. So if you want to write in and let me know what your challenges are that you're facing with communication, or just with your children, or with discipline, what are those challenges that are happening right now? And feel free to write in and let me know. But then I want you to think about, and some of you have children, some of you might work with children, some of you might be having children soon, is think about your child. And you're going to think about your child at age 25. You're going to think of your child at age 25. And your child, and you could even close your eyes right now and think about it, your child is coming home for Thanksgiving dinner. And what are the characteristics and lifestyles? What are the gifts that you want that child to have at age 25? And I say age 25 because that's when our prefrontal cortex, and we'll do this later, the brain in the palm of our hand, that's when that prefrontal cortex is finally done developing. Age 25. A little younger for girls because we're a little more mature, and a little older for men. But it's then that prefrontal cortex is done developing. So what are those characteristics and gifts that you want that child to have? The values. And just think about that for a minute. Think about what you want. And now we see the challenges that we're having now, but we see what we want our child to have at age 25, and we need to plan. We need to have a long-range goal. So what positive discipline does is it teaches. It teaches these life skills. Children need to be taught life skills. And how do children learn these life skills? Some of us might know this. How do you learn these characteristics, these values? We learn them from the people that we are with, that are raising us. So as a parent, we have a very hard job. I was not ready for how hard this job is. I think my parents made it look a little easier. We need to be those role models. We are our child's first and most influential teacher, so we need to be the role models. We need to be the ones practicing this language. So I call it positive discipline language. I call it nonviolent communication. Dr. Marshall Rosenberg wrote the book Nonviolent Communication, and he's a psychologist. And it's expressing how you're feeling. It's expressing how you're feeling inside. And the person that can then hear it can hear what you need. And a lot of what I've learned with my Montessori training and now as a mom, one of the most important skills we learned as a Montessori teacher is how to observe. When I became a Montessori teacher, I didn't think of myself as a teacher. I thought of myself as a scientist. Because we were trained so well. I mean, we went through 2 years of training to learn what Maria Montessori did. What Dr. Maria Montessori did is she observed the child. She observed the child and she saw, wow, look at what this child can do naturally. And then she developed the environment around the child. And what we're going to be talking about a lot today is that emotional environment, the communication that the child is hearing. And how can we prepare our home environments for that? So I'm going to do a quick little activity with you, and I'm going to get my notes here because I'm going to have you, let's see, I'm going to have you listen to a couple things. And first, I'm going to have you just in positive discipline. We do a lot of experiential learnings. That's why I love doing the workshops with schools and with teachers and with parents, because you really get into the role of the child and you're role playing. And you're seeing first maybe what the not so positive parent does or teacher does. And then you're seeing, you're learning. I'm going to teach you a skill. So I'm going to teach you a skill right now. So first, I want you just to get a feeling in your gut. What are you thinking, feeling, and deciding? I'm just excited to see all these people joining in. Hi. What are you thinking, feeling, and deciding when you hear what I'm about to say? Go brush your teeth. Don't forget your coat. Go to bed. Do your homework. Stop fighting with your brother. Put your dishes in the dishwasher. Hurry up and get dressed or we're going to miss the bus. Oh gosh, I sound like that so much. Stop whining. Pick up your toys. Okay, so that's just round one. You heard it. What are you thinking, feeling, and deciding? Don't judge yourselves if you said any of those things the past week. So now I'm going to be another parent, and I'm going to be the parent that just went to a positive discipline training. So, hey. What do you need to do for your teeth so they don't feel so scuzzy? What are you going to take so you won't be cold outside? What's next in your bedtime routine chart? You tell me. Go tell me what's next in your bedtime routine chart. Well, what's your plan for doing your homework? How can you and your brother solve this problem? What did we decide to do about our dishes when we were done eating? What do you need to do so you catch the bus on time today? I know, it's usually Mommy's fault. What words can you use so that I can hear you? What is your responsibility when you're finished playing with your toys? So what did you hear in that second group of when I was the positive discipline parent? And, what did I use? My tone of voice was probably not so sweet in the first time around. I was frustrated. I was definitely feeling frustrated. I say probably a few of those things many times. And I'll have to say, I usually start off, and sometimes I forget to say this in my workshops, but it's really just 3 out of 10 times. 3 out of 10 times we have to try to be this positive discipline parent. So learn the skills and think about it. Don't judge yourself for anything that you said or did. But what did I do as the positive discipline parent? And what did I do in that second group of statements? I was asking. So I think sometimes we don't realize how much we're telling. We're telling our kids to do this, do that, do it here, do it then, this time. And they better be on our time. They are not ready for our pace. They are going at a whole nother pace. And some of you who have children younger than the age of 6, younger than the age of 7, know that they're in this like Zen state. They are so present. They are, we need to learn from their example. They are so present. So what can we do to be more respectful? And positive discipline was created by the work of two psychologists, Alfred Adler and Rudolf Dreikurs. And Adler and Dreikurs did work in Austria, and then Dreikurs later brought it to the United States. But it was positive psychology. So they learned that children, people, human beings, all have the same need. They all have the same need. We have this need for belonging and significance, this need for belonging and significance. And belonging can maybe look like love, unconditional love. Children need unconditional love. And that significance can maybe be considered power or autonomy or purpose. So they need this. All human beings need this. And Adler and Dreikurs also discovered that children, when they're not getting this need, or they have this perception that they're not getting, this need's not being met, they have 4 mistaken goals. And these 4 mistaken goals is what we see as misbehavior. So it usually would look like undue attention. We see this undue attention with the young children, ages 7 and younger, and they're just trying to get our attention. Or it could be that power struggle, and it could be misguided power. That could be another mistaken goal. Or it could be revenge. Like, you were so mean to them, you hurt them, they're going to hurt you back. Or it could look like assumed inadequacy, and that's what we don't want to see. And that might be with an older child who's just given up. They've just given up. They don't feel that belonging and significance, and they've just given up. So what we need to do as parents, as teachers, as caregivers, is we need to read these mistaken goals. And what is that belief behind the behavior? And I have a very cool chart that I use. And people that do the trainings with me, we have this mistaken goal chart, and Jane Nelson and Lynn Law created the positive discipline training. And it's pretty cool how this chart works, because we need to look at how we are feeling inside. And how we are feeling inside tells us exactly what the child's mistaken goal is. And then the positive discipline gives you a lot of different tools that you can use for all these mistaken goals. But I think we can start off by maybe not being that telling parent, and maybe be that asking parent, using those curiosity questions. And those curiosity questions are what and how questions. What do you need to go outside. So when we are using this positive communication, we connect. We connect, and that connection is what we are striving for, I think, as parents. We need to connect with our children before we correct. Before we try to do any type of correction, we have to make sure we have that connection. And what does that look like? And that connection is going to look differently. It looks different for all three of my children, and it's going to look different for your kids too. So think about it. And one of the positive discipline strategies that I don't necessarily use as maybe some people do, but it's important that I make sure to have this time with my children, is it's called special time. And the special time is when you can really focus on your child. And it only really has to be 5 to 10 minutes. You know, here's expedite parenting, 5 to 10 minutes. But during those 5 to 10 minutes, your cell phone has to be off. You need to be engaged with your child. You need to give them your full attention. And you probably kind of need to be doing what they want to be doing. So maybe it's playing with my son and I'm down on the ground and I'm doing dinosaurs and trains and I'm connecting with him and I'm looking at his eyes. And maybe with my middle daughter, it might look like we're doing something together and we're having fun. And to believe it or not, she has a lot of fun cooking with me, and she and I connect and we're in the kitchen together. With my older daughter, it might look very different. But it's nice to have the alone time. So however you can do it, you use that time to connect. And back to, our communication, ask those curiosity questions. And that's how you can get the conversations going with our kids. Try not to ask the questions that get the yes or no answers. It's like, so what and how? Like, think of those curiosity questions. But another strategy to use when we're working with our kids, and positive discipline has many, many strategies, so I'm just going to touch on a few, but it really comes down to, and when I went to a training with Jane Nelson, it's being this kind and firm parent. So Rudolf Dreikurs and Alfred Adler believed that all human beings deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And dignity and respect is this kind and firm parent. So some of us might be too kind, and that might look like a permissive parent, and you're letting your child do whatever you want, and there's no boundaries, and you're permissive. But then you see that the child's walking all over you and not listening to anything you're saying. So then you become this firm parent and you mean business and you yell and you raise your voice and you might say it maybe in an inappropriate tone. So you're then this firm parent. And you might go back and forth from kindness to firmness and kindness to firmness. But everyone becomes a little, schizophrenic, and the children don't know. There's no consistency. So how do you be kind and firm at the same time? And is the big word here, because and brings that kind and firm together. And kindness shows respect for the child, that dignity and respect. And firmness shows respect for the situation and for you as a parent. You are the parent and you're in charge. I just did a workshop the other day at a Montessori school in New York, and after the workshop was over, the head of school was talking to me. She goes, "Oh, you were too kind to those parents. You need to tell them they are the parents, and we have authority. And our children, I'll tell you this, they need boundaries. Our children need these boundaries. They need to know that if they go this far, you're going to stop them. So they need these boundaries." So a little bit, and I'll just read some of these statements. That's a kind and firm parent. And the first strategy would be to state clear expectations. How about that one? That might work well with spouses too. Sometimes we expect them to know what we want, but we have to state clear expectations. And these examples are all going to be about watching another show. So you might say something like, "I trust you to figure out a way to plan for the show you really want to watch in the future. I trust you. You can figure out a way." You have faith, you're confident, state clear expectations. Another way to be a firm and kind parent would be to respond with a question. I wonder if you can figure out a way to make sure you can follow the house rules and still watch your favorite show in the future. I wonder. Respond with a question. Another strategy might be to state a given, a rule or a condition. Well, in our house, we only watch 1 hour of TV a day, and you've already done that. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay. You know, you're acknowledging their feelings. It's okay to be disappointed, but in our house, we watch 1 hour show a day. So it's a rule and it's a condition, and they're expected to follow it. Another thing, you can check your child's knowledge or understanding. You know, what's our house rule about TV? What's our house rule? You can invite cooperation. I know you'd rather watch your TV show, but since that isn't an option, I would love your help cutting vegetables for dinner. Invite cooperation. This works. This really works. When you ask for help, your child just wants to help. So I use this one a lot, you know, and I need your help. TV time is over and I need your help. Come on upstairs. So they like to help. They really, and they that's that feeling of power and autonomy. You know, how can we find ways to do that? Limited choices. This one works great with younger children. And for this example, it's with TV, but with younger kids, you give those limited choices. What are the two choices? You could tape the show and watch it tomorrow as part of your TV time, or you could just make a better plan for it tomorrow. But I use this one a lot with my younger child. You know, would you like to hold mommy's hand in the grocery store, or do you want to hold the grocery cart? So there's two choices there. You're not running all around. You're holding mommy's hand or you're holding the grocery cart. You know, would you like to, just two, and two's enough, especially for the younger kids. But they still have power. You know, they still have power. They can still make the choice, but you're deciding what those limited choices. It's limited choices. You're deciding what the choices are. And hey, here's a good one. Say what you want or mean. Just say it. Say it. The answer is no. It's okay to be disappointed. And I remember reading a great article once, and I use it, and my kids probably hate it, but I use it. Asked and answered. You asked. The answer is no. Don't ask again. So, asked and answered. Or you can use nonverbal language, and this works great too. You know, just put a gentle hand on your child's shoulder, look them in the eye, and no. But really, I think too, when you're working with children younger than 3, and sorry, I just have to check something. Younger than 3, they're not in that age of reason yet. You have to be very careful about using any of these questions or whatever with children younger than 3. And Jane Nelson and Lynn Lott say there's some really big tips and tools, positive discipline tips and tools for children younger than 3. And it's, okay. It's supervision, distraction, and redirection. So you have to be supervising this child younger than 3. You can't expect them not to hit their younger sibling if you're not right there. So you have to be supervising. And then you need to redirect or distract. If they are, you know, having a discipline problem, you need to either redirect or distract with something. And it's not a distraction, like you could just pick them up. I mean, you can even take away the toys. The child might need you to just be there. And I actually love Magda Gerber. Sorry, I'm getting my notes on this because she has a few tools with that infant and toddler. I'm not sure how many people out there have these young babies. I know a few people have siblings or, you know, work with children, but these young children, if you see that conflict happening with the younger child, you move closer You move closer to that conflict. However, you are calm and quiet. You know, I see some teachers sometimes running across the room to try to get the child. It's like, how do we be calm and quiet? And you observe and wait. You observe and wait. And you make sure the children are safe. You block any hitting or pushing or biting. You're making sure they're being safe. Because as soon as they're not safe, if they're hitting or pushing or biting, you know, you need to get in there and remove the child. But you could say something like, you know, I won't let you push. I see you want the toy and Joey is holding it now. I won't let you push. So there's a spot where you can hold them. But reflect on the situation in a non-judgmental way. You both want the toy. You're both holding on to it. You're just observing and stating what you're observing. And then you acknowledge the feelings you see. You seem frustrated. It's hard. It's hard, isn't it? And if the children struggle still, and you have to go in, and you'll have to go in, and you have to do some intervention. And you might have to take the toy away. You might have to help them to use their words, because children this young don't know how to use their words, and you can let them talk and let the other one listen, and then let the other one talk and the other one listen. And then you sometimes just reflect what they're saying, what they might be feeling. And I think let me just check to see how our timing is. So, thank you. I had a child once, and this strategy really, it works to just be close sometimes. And then there's this script that you can use to help to build on it, help the child to build on what they're saying. And in Montessori classrooms, the teachers use a peace rose, and it's very lovely. And they have a peace area, and the children can't really solve their conflicts yet. So you as a parent or as a teacher, you need to get in there and, okay, I see you're having trouble. I see you might be frustrated, you know, this emotional intelligence that we're trying to foster. And let me help you. I want to hear from Mary first. Mary, tell me what happened. And then you listen. And you try to help that other child to listen. And then you let the other child talk, and then the other person listens. And then you try to come up with a solution. So what the strategies that I'm talking about now is we're not looking to shame, blame, punish, do any of that. We're looking for solutions here. So 1, we're trying to teach these life skills, and 2, we're trying to help the children to look for some solutions. So another tool that I wanted to talk about is this: how do we deal with these feelings? And so I'm going to talk a little bit now about nonviolent communication and the positive discipline strategy around that, Adlerian psychology around how do we communicate these feelings. And there's no shouldn'ts here. So there's a lot of things that we sometimes might say to our kids. You don't really feel that way. Or, you know, that isn't a nice way to feel. Or, well, what did you do? Or, you should love your brother. You should really love your brother. You don't hate him. Don't let me hear you talk that way. Or, you could just go to your room until you can talk nice. So those are the things that we sometimes might say to our children that they should or shouldn't feel. But we need to teach our children to express these feelings. And we need to learn ourselves how to express these feelings. And this is what I've been learning with, I'll just show you the book cover, this Nonviolent Communication with Marshall Rosenberg. And he talks about this way that we can, 1, it's that observing, the concrete actions we observe that affect our well-being. So the observations, what are we observing? And then how we feel in relation to what we observe. What's that feeling word? And I had a hard time with this for a while. When I first began my training in positive discipline, they kept asking us, what are you thinking, feeling, and deciding? We had to do all these experimental lessons, and it was fun. But I was like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know. Like, I really had to learn these feelings words, and there's so many different feelings words. And I'm still learning them, and I'm still learning all of this. And children humble us the most because they're teaching us how to do all this. So it's how do we feel? And we'll talk about some of those feelings words in a minute. And then what are the needs? What are our needs, values, and desires that create these feelings? So what do we need? And that's what Marshall Rosenberg teaches us, to really listen to what the needs are. So you might hear something, but how can you say, oh, okay, you feel angry that I did this, and you need, like, what do they need? And then we can then follow it up with a request. And that's that work of, and I wish. So I was talking the other day in an interview about that. I think the statement, I feel blank when you blank, and I wish. It's an easy one to remember. It's an easy one we can teach our children. I feel what? And then I have, a whole list of these feelings words that I can share if, I'm getting with the times, and you can email me and I'll put it on my website one of these days, are these feelings words. But I got a new list from, the nonviolent communication, and it really breaks it into all these amazing feelings. In positive discipline trainings, we kind of break it into 4 quadrants of you either feel sad or mad or glad or you're scared. There's 4 main feelings. You're sad, you're mad, you're scared, or you're glad. So then I work with parents and I say, okay, well, what does sad look like? And then we say, we brainstorm all these different words for sad. And then what does mad look like? Oh, it can just be all these different things. And then we start to teach our children how to use these feelings words. And then we teach them the I feel statement. Okay, I feel, use that statement. I feel blank when you blank, and I wish. And I've taught this to my children, and it really has helped. The youngest one is almost 4, so he's not quite there, but he's getting it. But it's amazing what you can feel. And then that's what's so important right now, and the work that people are doing in public schools all around, and independent schools, but all around this emotional intelligence. The studies are out. EQ is almost more important than IQ. We need to teach people how to do this, how to learn to speak to each other. And it's, Dr. Rosenberg did it. He's creating peace in the world. He does it with husband and wife. He does it with teachers and principals, and with countries. It's nonviolent communications. It's how do you speak? And so I'm trying to learn this to create a little more peace in my home. But it could look something like, a couple tools could be, you could acknowledge. You acknowledge that anger. It sounds like you're really angry. You could allow the anger. Well, everyone has a right to their feelings. I don't blame you. I felt angry before. There was a time that I felt angry before. Our kids love to hear when there was a time when we were a kid and we did something bad, or there was a time when we were a kid and we got angry, or there's a time when we made a mistake. They love to hear when we screw up. So tell them those things. And then there's acceptable solutions. So it's not okay to hit your brother, but what do you want to hit? Do you want to go hit something? Should we go up to your room? You can hit the pillow. Do you want to punch a bop bag? Do you want to scream into your teddy bear? Do you want to scream? What do you want to do? What's going to make you feel better? Do you want to jump up and down? And I remember in one of my trainings, someone had done this stomp pad, and we teach it with in preschool centers, and you can have this little area where the child can stomp, and ooh, that makes them feel so good to stomp. So I made it for my son the other day, a stomp pad, because he just gets angry, and he doesn't know. So I think that's how I'm going to There's so many things I can talk about, but I just want to show you the brain model, because I think we have my assistant over here. How much time do we have left? So, okay, good. So I'm going to talk for like 5-10 more minutes, and then I'm just going to open it up to some questions, and I might be able to answer some questions. I don't think I can see any questions, but I don't know if, we'll see. This is the first time I'm doing this, so we'll see. But this is the handy brain model, and you can see the questions? Okay, so Dr. Dan Siegel, he is amazing. He's a neuroscientist, and he wrote The Whole Brain Child, in addition to many other books that I've read, Brainstorm for teenagers, and he has a lot of great stuff. I would highly recommend looking at him on YouTube and learning about this neuroscience that he's been studying, and this how meditation is really helpful, especially for adults that are dealing with children, and it helps us to be more calm. But so here's your brain. So if you want to hold up your hand like this, and let me back up a little bit. So this going down, that's your brain stem. And your brain stem is responsible for your heart rate, your breathing, those automatic bodily functions, that brain stem. And then if you put your thumb over the center, that's your midbrain. And your midbrain is where the major radar lives. What are you going to do? Are you going to freeze? Are you going to fight? Or are you going to get the hell out of there? You're going to flight. It's also where our memories and our emotions are stored, right here, this midbrain. It's called the primitive brain. And then you're going to put your fingers back over, and this is the cortex, and the cortex is where the feelings come in, and your senses come in, and then your thinking, all the thinking happens here. And your prefrontal cortex is maybe your distal fingertips here. And that prefrontal cortex is what I was talking about before, that is not fully developed until the age of 25. So there's been a lot of recent brain research, the neuroscience. It's amazing, and I've enjoyed reading it all the past 10 to 15 years, because it's all new. It's all supporting what Dr. Maria Montessori said and Alfred Adler. But what we're seeing is there's these mirror neurons. So they discovered mirror neurons, and mirror neurons can also be considered monkey see, monkey do neurons. So if we have these mirror neurons, and it happens to me all the time, I see somebody crying and I start to well up and start to cry. You might be really mad at something, and people around you might feel tense. So we have these mirror neurons. And when things are going well and we're feeling good, our brain looks kind of like this. But there might be a day that you come home from work and you had a really hard day, and maybe your boss misinterpreted something you did or said, and you got stuck in traffic. You come home and the house is a mess and the kids are crazy, and everything is just not going away. And then your husband says something and you're just like, boom. What happens to your brain? And neuroscience shows this. Your brain does this. So what is there? What is showing? It's that primitive brain. So here's our brain, and then if we know that mirror neurons, we come home and we're like, flipped our lid, how do you think this child's gonna feel? So, who's responsible in this relationship? Who's responsible in this relationship? We are. We are the adults. We do have a formed prefrontal cortex. So we can act responsibly, morally, we can self-regulate. How do we self-regulate? Maybe some deep breaths. What do you do to make yourself feel better so that you can go from flipped to down? You self-regulate. And then you can maybe communicate. Because if you're like this, there's not going to be much communication happening here. Because when you're in this brain, when you're in this primitive brain, Jay Nelson always says it, reptiles, they eat their young, this reptilian brain. So we need to come back down here. And I've taught this to my children and my two older ones, and I told them about this, and it's important for them to know that their brain might do this, and when it does this, what can you do to make yourself feel better? Because you're never going to solve a conflict when you're like this. So how can we do that self-regulating? And something that people have used if we're, kind of working on these anger and the feelings, besides using your words, how can you make your child feel better? So brainstorm with them. What can they do to make themselves feel better? And when they're like this, you can ask them that curiosity question. Would it make you feel better to go use your stomp pad? Would it make you feel better to go look at some books? What would make you feel better? But you've tried to have that conversation with your child beforehand. And if you have this problem with your child flipping his lid, or you kind of have something, there's things that if it happens often, then you have to prepare. Then you have to prepare in advance, and you have to have that conversation. When you do this, I'm going to do this. And sometimes we just have to do that as parents too, is we have to state what we're going to do, and then we have to follow through with what we say. And I hear it so many times from parents, and I've done it before. We're going to leave this party right now if you don't do this, or, if you do that one more time, we're going to, and what do? We don't leave. We didn't really mean it. We didn't really mean what we said we were going to do. So sometimes we have to, if we're going to say it, we've got to do it, and then we've got to follow through, because the children, they need this consistency. So I think that brain model is important to know, because it helps the child then get back in their brain, and then you can talk to them, and then you can have that communication, and then you can make that connection. And sometimes a great tool is just, I need a hug. I need a hug, and you hug them and you make them feel better, and then you're able to talk. So we talked about a few different things about communication today. It's really building that connection with our communication, our nonverbal communication, our tone of voice, our kind eyes. Kind eyes look different than, I remember when I was working at a Montessori school, I've always been a pretty positive and optimistic person, but there was one day I remember I was just like frantic, and I get frantic sometimes, and I've used that word with my children. I'm like, I'm just frantic right now. I'm trying to get so much done. So I was frantic, and this little boy just looked up and went, Miss Kristen is not having a good day. Like, he just knew. They know when you're able to, have this dialogue and becoming this kind and firm parent. So I want to thank you all for joining me on this live workshop. I'm planning on doing some more of these. I'm excited to do this training in July with Lynn Lott to become an encouragement consultant, and I continue to learn daily with my children. They're my best teachers. And if you see me around town, I don't always practice what I preach, because I'm human and I'm not going to be able to do it all the time. So 3 out of 10 times, just 3 out of 10 times, we have to try to be positive, using that asking versus telling. There's another do versus don't. Sometimes we're like, do this, do that, do this. And it's don't run, don't hit your brother. Don't do this, don't do that. And really what we have to do is just take a deep breath and tell them what to do. What's the positive way to say it? What to do. So I would like to open it up to any questions, and I can maybe answer a few questions, and then I'll probably pop off by noon.
We had alternatives to saying no, but you that was in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I think you've sort of.
And there's, no is I think sometimes you need to say no. And I think some parents don't say no enough. But when we say no, it should be when we really mean no. So I think, sometimes people think, oh, positive discipline. Oh, you're so wishy-washy and you're positive and you let them do this and that. And no, that's not what we do. It's being a kind and firm parent, stating what we want, what we expect, And then being a little more proactive instead of reactive, because I think a lot of reaction would be the no, don't do that. So instead of no, you're distracting, you're redirecting, you're using what they can do. You may touch this. May is another, I think, a fabulous word. It somehow makes you say things a little nicer. And I learned that when my children were in a Waldorf program as babies. And these women just knew how to talk to the children. It was so soothing and so nurturing and so lovely. And I learned that word may. You may you may do this. You may do that. And I like to bring it a little old-fashioned too of, my son asked me the other day, may I be excused? Yes, you may be excused from the table. Make some things, and what we can do as parents is we can create these values of what we do in our family. And so this is what we do in our family. We sit down at the dinner table all together and it's sacred. So how can we create these kind of sacred moments with our kids so that we're developing these characteristics and life skills that we want to see in that child when he's 25. And I was talking with a neighbor the other day and she said, I'm still using these skills. My kids are 28. She has twin boys and they're 28. And you are constantly using these skills. And that's why I'm excited for the training that I'm going to be doing with really working with adults, because I've always kind of communicated with my children in a pretty nonchalant way of, we do this, we do that. Like in a little more, you don't talk down to kids. You don't baby talk with them. You talk to them like you give them dignity and respect, the dignity and respect that they deserve. But there comes a point when they're going to push those boundaries. And, temper tantrums. Temper tantrums are, I hate to say it, they sometimes need to have them. And my kids have had temper tantrums in all the most inopportune times. So temper tantrums, and I've been trained in this by my wonderful mentor, Barbara Kinney. And it was so funny. You have to really pretend like you're doing a temper tantrum in this positive discipline training. So I was having a temper tantrum and she just was sitting next to me with these kind, loving eyes. And she said it was just encouragement through her kind eyes. She was just there. She was protecting the space. I wasn't going to be flailing and hurting myself, but she was just there. And I stopped. I stopped having my temper tantrum. Granted, I'm 41 years old and I know when to stop having a temper tantrum, but sometimes we don't. So temper tantrums need to happen. Sometimes they happen in the worst times. And you have to wait for your child to get out of that craziness. They're like here. And I was talking to somebody the other day who she told me about this awful temper tantrum that her son just had. But she started off the conversation with, I knew it. He was tired and hungry and we kept going and we were overstimulated. So sometimes they are little kids and we're trying to make them do too much. So, but always then it's not, afterward, you have to talk with them. Oh, when you got really angry, you were fighting and doing this. What can you do instead? What can you do so that we don't get that far with that temper tantrum? But it's, we sometimes have to have temper tantrums, we have to get it out. Cry, yell, scream, whatever. And then as adults, the most important thing that we need to do, and I was trained in this as a Montessori teacher, and they took this very seriously, is the spirituality of a teacher. And I think of it too as the spirituality of a parent. Like, you need to be your best self because we are the role models of these children. We need to be our best selves. And how do we do that? It's, I have the bag, so it's exhausting. We have to take care of ourselves. So there's all different ways that you can take care of yourselves. Some people do different things, but it's getting enough rest, eating healthy, and exercising daily. And I love the book Brain Rules by John Medina, and he really talks about this. And the exercise thing really has to only be 15 minutes again. You can be efficient with all this, but it's just movement, moving your body, doing yoga, like what makes you feel better? What makes you feel better? and do it. I had to get my act into gear this year, and I made it my New Year's resolution. I'm going to start going to the gym that I've been a member of for the past 4 years, and I'm going to start being more regular going to the gym, and it's been so good for me. Not only has it made me feel better, but I've made connections with people that I wouldn't normally see, and you make connections with all sorts of people. So it's a nice way to you have to get yourself out there. What we sometimes forget, and I think what happened to me as a young mother, is I didn't keep a lot of the connections that I needed. I have a lot of friends and I love being with friends, but when you're a mom, you sometimes are just, there's so much going on, and the kids and the house and everything, and you need to make sure you have connections with friends and with family and with your loved ones and your spouse, your partner. So it's all about that building connection and that positive communication and the nonviolent communication. And there's a lot more that I would love to do. What time do we have now?
11:51. But one other person asked, what if your child falls to temper tantrum state and won't listen even after using this tool?
Yeah, you just let it go. And you might use another tool of, I need a hug. And this was Dr. Bob Bradbury. I love this example. He taught this work, this Adlerian psychology. And he had a father in his workshop. And the father was talking about their son with these temper tantrums. And Dr. Bradbury said, I need a hug. Tell him you need a hug. And when you say I need, not I want or do you need, I need a hug. They're giving something to you and they're helping you. And the example here is the boy was like temper tantruming and crying and the dad said, I need a hug. And the boy's like, what? I need a hug. And the boy's, oh no. Now? Dad, yes, I need a hug now. And the boy went over and hugged the dad, and they just hugged. And that feels good sometimes. You hug and take deep breaths too while this is happening, because you're also probably having a little bit of a temper tantrum too. And then the child just melted. And the dad said, thanks, I really needed that. And the little boy said, thanks, I needed it too. And sometimes they are just so wound up and they just need a hug, or you need to distract and redirect and bring them to something that will help to make them feel better. Or you just walk away and ignore. I mean, there's so many different things you can do. But I remember seeing this awesome video of a 2.5-year-old that was temper tantruming. And the mom was right there doing dishes, and this little child was having a temper tantrum. And then the mom just walked away into another part of the house. And the child looked up and stopped crying completely. They were fine. Saw that the mom wasn't there, found the mom, went to right next to where the mom was and did that temper tantrum again. And the mom just kept moving and the child kept following. Eventually they got tired of it. But you have to look at what's that belief behind the behavior, this temper tantrum. So if I were to look at my mistaken goal chart, there's the temper tantrum is causing what? What do you feel inside? And it could be you're feeling angry, you're feeling challenged, you're feeling threatened, you're feeling defeated, and it might be a misguided power thing. So there's ideas that you can do. Well, you can acknowledge you can't make them do anything they don't want to do. And you can direct them and have them, I need your help. I need your help. I'm trying to make dinner. I need your help. Or something they love to do. I really need you to, do you think you can gather something? Or can you make me that picture? Will you draw me that picture? Or you offer that limited choice. You don't fight. You don't give in. You withdraw from conflict. You calm down. That might be something you can do. And we didn't talk about it, and we'll talk about it another time, is that positive timeout. You calm down. be firm and kind. Act, don't talk. I kind of like that one too. That's a good one. Act, don't talk. Sometimes we talk so much. Education comes from the root word educare, which means to draw forth. We need to draw forth from our kids. We don't need to always talk at them. And, develop mutual respect. Get help from the child to set reasonable and limits. So if this is an ongoing thing, you do have to talk to the child and say, okay, this is happening and this is not acceptable. When this happens again, when you have a temper tantrum on the playground, I'm just going to pick you up and bring you into the car and we're going to go home. So you need to just do that. So I'd like to thank you all so much for attending this morning. I hope you got some tools that you can work with over the summer. I'll be seeing you back maybe in about a month after I do my next training with some great tips on how to be that encouraging parent, how to be an encouraging parent, because it's about encouragement. And Rudolf Dreikurs said that children need encouragement like a plant needs water. So children need encouragement like a plant needs water. And what are the ways that we can encourage our children? How can we bring out these strengths? We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. So how can we bring out these strengths? And thank you. You can find out more on my website, www.kristenancker.com. I am scheduling workshops in the fall and winter at schools. I do a lot of workshops with schools, and I work with, the best is working with the teachers first, and then with the parents, and I do a teacher workshop, and I do the parents, and it really brings everyone all in the same page. I work with parents and with their nannies, and we're all talking the same language. So how do we work together? As we all know, it takes a village to raise these kids. So working together, and I hope to be a resource to you. And thank you all so much. I will be signing off now. Bye.